Rian Holt had always believed his life would stay the same forever. Dirty tools, broken machines, and long nights inside the noisy repair bay of Station Helios 9. Every day felt heavy, like the air itself wanted him to stay poor and invisible. But on this strange night, even the humming ceiling lights sounded different. It almost felt like the station was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Rian wiped grease from his hands and sat on a rusted crate, unaware that his entire life was about to change. He had just finished repairing a cargo drone when his wristcom vibrated sharply. The message was short and surprising. Mechanic Holt, report to Deck 7. Now, Rian stared at the screen. Deck 7 was not for people like him. Only nobles, high officers, and imperial guests were allowed there. Maybe someone pressed the wrong button, he thought. But the message was marked priority red, which meant refusing was impossible. With a sigh, he picked up his tool bag, brushed the dust from his jacket, and walked toward the lift. As the elevator carried him upward, a strange fear grew inside him. Why Deck 7? Why now? He tried to tell himself it was simply a repair call, but deep inside, something whispered that this was not a mistake. Not at all. The doors opened, and Rian stepped into a world completely different from the dirty repair bay. Soft silver lights glowed along the walls. Guards in dark armor stood like statues. Servants moved silently with their heads lowered. The air smelled clean and cold, almost metallic. Ahead of him stretched a long hall where people in expensive clothes waited in a quiet line, their faces proud and bored. Rian swallowed. Everyone here looked important, powerful, and extremely rich. He walked slowly, checking his wristcom again to make sure he stood on the correct floor. The same message stared back at him. Deck 7. Now. His boots echoed on the glass floor as he entered a large dining chamber filled with round tables and glowing banners. He felt smaller with every step. A server rushing past suddenly pointed at him. You. Table 1, hurry. Rian tried to explain he wasn't a guest, but the man didn't listen. He simply waved him forward. Rian felt helpless as he was pushed deeper into the chamber. 100 eyes turned toward him as he walked, and he felt heat rise in his face. He lowered his head and moved quickly to the front. Table 1 was impossible to miss. It was the closest table to the imperial throne platform. Rian froze when he saw the people already sitting there, royal advisors, decorated generals, and nobles wearing clothes that cost more than his yearly salary. He did not belong here. Yet he sat because he had no choice. He could feel their confused and annoyed stares stabbing into him. Before anyone could speak, the lights dimmed, and a heavy silence spread through the hall. Then a voice echoed, announcing the arrival of His Imperial Majesty and the Princess of the Empire. Everyone rose to their feet. Rian's heart hammered. He had never seen the Emperor in person, and he certainly had never imagined seeing the princess. Guards marched forward carrying a floating golden chair. On it sat Princess Aria Kaelen, the Emperor's daughter. She looked young, maybe 19, with silver-white hair that reflected the lights. Her face was pale but still beautiful, calm yet intense. Her body did not move at all. Everyone knew the stories. An accident that left her paralyzed. But her eyes were alive, sharp, and frighteningly observant. They called her the Silent Star. Her floating chair stopped directly in front of Table 1. As her gaze traveled across the room, it suddenly stopped on Rian. The moment their eyes met, he felt a cold shiver run through him. Her expression changed slightly, not with anger, but with curiosity. She studied him like he was something unusual, something out of place. You, she said softly. Her voice carried easily through the hall. I have not seen you before. The nobles shifted uncomfortably as they turned to stare at the dirty mechanic sitting among them. Rian opened his mouth, panic rising in his chest. I'm just a mechanic, Your Highness. There was a mistake, but she cut him off with a soft whisper. No mistake. I want him to stay. Gasps filled the table. Rian felt his throat tighten. Why would the princess want him here? What did she see in him? What did she know? Everyone sat down, but Rian's hands trembled slightly. He tried to look anywhere except the princess, yet her sharp eyes remained on him. Under the table, his wristcom vibrated again. He carefully lowered his hand and checked the screen. The message was from an unknown sender. The message said only one thing. Don't move. Don't speak. Don't run. They think you know the truth. Rian felt the blood drain from his face. What truth? Who were they? Why him? His mind raced as he slowly lifted his eyes and found Princess Aria still staring at him. But now she wore a faint smile. A mysterious, knowing smile. She knew about the message. She knew more than she should. And she seemed to be waiting for something. Perhaps for Rian to react, to panic, to reveal something he didn't even understand. Rian Holt had sat at the wrong table. Or maybe the table had chosen him. Whatever the reason, he could feel it deep inside. His quiet, invisible life was over. Something dangerous had started, and he was now at the center of it. Princess Aria's faint smile did not fade. It stayed fixed on Rian like she was studying him, searching for something hidden beneath his simple clothes and tired face. Rian tried to stay calm, but the message on his wristcom kept echoing in his mind. They think you know the truth. What truth? He didn't know anything except how to fix broken machines. He had never been involved in anything important. Yet here he sat, in front of the most powerful girl in the empire, while nobles whispered around him like he was a bomb ready to explode. A soft ringing sound signaled the beginning of the royal ceremony. Silver dishes appeared on the tables, delivered by floating service drones. Lights brightened slightly. People began to talk again, laughing politely, eating quietly, pretending everything was normal. But Rian felt something sharp and invisible pressing against him. The princess kept watching him, and every few seconds her eyes moved to his wristcom, as if she knew exactly what message he received. Rian picked up his fork with a shaking hand. The nobles around him tried to ignore him, but their sideways glances showed their discomfort. A general with a thick beard cleared his throat. "Your Highness," he said carefully, "may I ask why a mechanic is seated with us?" His tone was polite, but his eyes were full of irritation. He clearly didn't want a poor worker ruining their perfect royal table. Princess Aria did not look at the general. She kept her gaze on Rian. "Because he is interesting," she said softly. "More interesting than all of you." Whispering erupted across the table. Some nobles frowned, others exchanged uneasy looks. Rian wished he could disappear. He didn't want attention. He didn't want danger. He only wanted to go back to his workshop and tighten bolts in peace. But leaving was impossible now. Aria had chosen him, for reasons he could not understand. Unexpectedly, she spoke again, this time directly to him. "Tell me your name." Her eyes locked on his like she could read his thoughts. Rian felt his throat tighten. "Rian Holt, Your Highness," he said softly. Her eyes flickered with interest. "Rian," she repeated, tasting the name. "Good. You will stay near me tonight." That sentence sent a wave of shock around the table. A poor mechanic staying near the imperial princess? It made no sense. But Aria said it calmly, like it was the most natural thing in the universe. Rian lowered his head, unsure what to do. Before he could speak, someone lightly tapped his shoulder from behind. He turned and saw a young servant girl leaning close. Her eyes were wide with fear. Her hands shook. Quietly, so only he could hear, she whispered, "Don't trust anyone here. Not even her." Then she quickly stepped away and disappeared among the other servants. Rian felt his stomach drop. The princess noticed his reaction immediately. Her voice was soft and cold. "A message again?" she asked. His heart stopped. He had not looked at his wristcom since the first warning. She was guessing. No, she was testing him. "Just an alert," he lied. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if she could see through him. Before anything else could happen, a sudden loud sound echoed through the hall. A heavy metal door slammed open at the far end. Guards rushed in, forming a defensive line. Their movements were too fast, too tense. The nobles turned in confusion. Rian felt the air suddenly change. Even the princess lifted her head with more focus. A tall officer walked straight towards the emperor. His face looked pale beneath his helmet. He whispered something urgently into the emperor's ear. Rian couldn't hear the words, but he could see the emperor's expression tighten. Something serious was happening. The officer stepped back and announced loudly, "Deck 7 is now under high alert. All guests remain seated. No one leaves." Murmurs of fear spread across the hall. Rian's pulse quickened. High alert? Why now? Was it because of him? The princess's floating chair slowly rotated toward Rian. Her voice was almost too soft to hear. You have brought trouble with you, Rian Holt. There was no anger in her tone, only certainty. Rian felt panic rising. I didn't do anything, he whispered. I swear I don't even know what's happening. Princess Aria leaned slightly forward. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. Then why? She asked quietly. Did someone send you a warning? Rian froze. She knew. She had known the whole time. He had no answer, because he was just as confused as she was curious. But before he could try to explain, something unexpected happened. The lights above flickered once, twice, then shut off completely. Darkness swallowed the hall. People gasped. Someone screamed. Chairs crashed. Guards shouted orders. In the pitch black, Rian felt something cold brush against his wrist. His wrist palm vibrated again, this time more urgently. He lifted it slightly, shielding the tiny screen so no one else could see. A new message appeared. They are coming for the princess. Protect her if you want to live. Rian's breath caught in his throat. Protect her? He was just a mechanic, not a soldier. His hands trembled as fear crawled up his spine. He looked up, but he could not see anything in the darkness. Only one thing was clear now. Whatever danger was coming, he was trapped in the middle of it. And for reasons he didn't understand, someone believed he was the one who could save the princess. Complete darkness filled the grand hall, swallowing every face and every sound until only confused whispers and frightened breaths remained. Rian could hear nobles panicking, chairs scraping, boots running, guards shouting for order. The air felt thicker, colder, like the darkness itself was alive. Rian tried to stand, but something inside him froze when he felt the vibrating message still glowing weakly on his wrist comm. They are coming for the princess. Protect her if you want to live. He didn't understand any of this. He wasn't a fighter. He wasn't a bodyguard. He was a broke mechanic who fixed broken drones. Why would anyone expect him to protect a princess? Yet the warning felt too real, too urgent. He took a slow breath and turned toward where he last saw her. But in this blackness, there was nothing to guide him except memory and instinct. A high-pitched crack echoed from somewhere near the entrance, like a plasma tool cutting metal. Someone screamed. A guard shouted, "Seal the door." Seal. His voice stopped suddenly, replaced by a dull thud. Rian's chest tightened. Whatever entered the hall was fast. In the darkness, a soft voice whispered right beside him. Rian. It was the princess. Her voice was calm, almost too calm for this situation. He turned sharply toward the sound. Your Highness, stay close, he whispered. His hands stretched forward, searching carefully. After a moment, his fingers brushed something smooth and cold. The edge of her floating chair. Before he could say anything else, a sharp metallic clicking noise echoed from somewhere deeper in the hall. It didn't sound like footsteps. It sounded like claws. Several nobles gasped. Someone sobbed. Rian swallowed hard, trying to keep his voice steady. We need to move, he whispered. Now. But Princess Aria answered softly, her tone strange and steady. You don't even know what's here. Rian tried to stay brave, even though his heart was racing. I don't need to know, he said. I just know we can't stay in the open. He tried pushing the floating chair, but it didn't move. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. It is locked in place during ceremonies. I cannot move without the command code. Rian's panic grew. Then tell me the code. But she shook her head slightly, even in the darkness. Only my father knows it. Rian cursed under his breath. The Emperor was somewhere in the hall, but reaching him blind was impossible. Another sharp, clicking sound echoed, this time closer. Much closer. The princess whispered again, almost like she was thinking aloud. They are using the blackout to hide their movements. Rian leaned in, keeping his voice low. Who are they? Her reply was quiet, but heavy. Assassins. And not human. Rian froze. His mind tried to make sense of it. Not human? What does that? A loud crash shook the floor. Something heavy landed only a few meters away. People screamed. Rian felt a chill spread through his body. He could hear the creature breathing, deep, wet, unnatural breaths. He grabbed the side of the princess's chair. Stay quiet, he whispered. He pulled her chair closer even though it shouldn't have moved. Yet somehow, it slid a little under his grip, as if responding to him. The princess sucked in a small breath. "How did you do that?" she whispered. Rian didn't know. He didn't understand. He didn't care. He only knew something was hunting them. Suddenly, the emergency lights flickered on. Dim red light flooded the hall, revealing the chaos. Tables overturned. Plates shattered. Smoke drifted across the floor. And then Rian saw it. A tall, insect-like machine stood only a few steps away from them. Its body was black metal with long blade arms folded at its sides. 6 glowing red eyes scanned the room. It looked half alive, half engineered, like something that had crawled out of a nightmare and been sharpened by science. A noble tried to run. The creature moved faster than Rian could process. One blade shot forward, silent and precise. The noble fell before he even reached the door. Rian's breath caught. The creature's red eyes shifted toward the princess. Toward them. Rian acted without thinking. He grabbed a metal serving tray from the table and hurled it with all his strength. It hit the creature's head with a loud clang. The machine's eyes flickered as it turned sharply toward him instead. "You idiot," the princess whispered. "You drew its attention." Rian crouched beside her chair, voice shaking. "Better me than you." The creature lunged. Rian rolled to the side, barely avoiding the blade that slammed into the floor where he had been. He grabbed a broken table leg and swung it toward the creature's face. The wooden piece snapped instantly against the metal skin. The creature lifted its arm, ready to strike. But then something strange happened. The princess raised her hand slightly, her fingers twitching in a controlled pattern. There was a spark, small but visible, between her fingertips. The creature's eyes flickered again, confused. Rian stared. "You can move your hand?" he whispered. She didn't answer, but Rian saw her fingers twitch again, and the spark grew brighter. The creature jerked violently. Its limbs twisted upward, like invisible cords were pulling it. Its blades retracted. It let out a distorted mechanical screech as its body locked up. Rian stared in shock. "You're controlling it," he whispered. Princess Aria's breath was uneven. "Only for a few seconds," she whispered. "Its system is resisting." Rian quickly grabbed her chair and pushed. This time, the chair moved more easily. "Then we run now," he said. "Before it breaks free." She hesitated, but nodded. Rian pushed the floating chair through the mess of overturned tables, heading toward the side exit. He didn't know where it led. He didn't know what was waiting there. But he knew staying meant death. Behind them, the creature let out a roar of metal and fury as it broke free from her control. It was coming. Rian pushed harder, his heart pounding. The princess looked back, her eyes bright with fear, but also something else. Something like trust. "Rian," she whispered as the creature screamed behind them. "Whoever sent you that message, they might be right." He didn't understand what she meant. He didn't have time to ask. All he could do was run. Rian didn't look back again. The sound of the creature behind them was enough. The sharp clattering of metal claws hitting the floor, the grinding whine of its gears, the echo of its distorted screech. He pushed the princess's floating chair as fast as he could through the hall, weaving between broken tables and fallen chairs. His breath came quick and hot, mixing with the cold metallic smell drifting through the air. Princess Aria kept turning her head slightly, as if she could sense every movement of the machine that hunted them. The side exit door opened automatically when they approached, its sensors reacting to the chair's royal signature. Beyond it was a long, dim corridor with smooth walls and a low red emergency light. Rian pushed the chair inside, and the door closed behind them with a heavy metallic thud. The hallway felt too narrow and too quiet after the chaos of the dining hall. Rian leaned forward, breathing hard, trying to regain his strength. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. The princess nodded, her face pale but calm. For now. Her voice was steady, but her fingers trembled lightly on the armrest. She wasn't as unaffected as she looked. "We don't have much time," she whispered. "That thing is programmed to follow me. It will cut through the door." Rian swallowed and listened. A faint scratching sound echoed from behind the closed door, the creature testing the metal. His heart started pounding again. "Where does this corridor lead?" he asked quickly. The princess answered without hesitation. Service levels. Emergency maintenance shafts. Very few people know them. In other words, they were heading into an area Rian actually understood. He began pushing the chair down the corridor. The red lights flickered above them, stretched shadows crawling across the walls. The station felt like it was breathing, like every pipe or cable was holding a secret. Rian realized something strange. Princess Aria knew exactly where they needed to go. Even though she couldn't move her body. She told him when to turn left or right, which door to avoid, when to move faster. Her mind was sharp, calculating, always 2 steps ahead. They reached a maintenance door with a sign reading, "Authorized personnel only." Rian tapped the panel, expecting it to deny access, but the door slid open immediately. He frowned. "It shouldn't recognize me." The princess looked at him closely. Yet it did. Her answer made him uneasy. Nothing tonight made sense. Every system, every door, every warning seemed to react to him like he was more than a mechanic. Inside the maintenance room, the air was warmer and smelled like oil and hot metal. Pipes ran across the ceiling, and machines hummed quietly. Rian gently positioned the princess's floating chair near a console. "We should hide here," he whispered. "At least for a moment." She looked at him for a long second before nodding. Rian moved toward the control panel, hoping he could manually lock the doors. He began typing commands he had learned through years of repairing station machinery. But the terminal screen blinked and rejected his input. "Access restricted," it said. Rian cursed under his breath. "The system won't let me lock anything." Princess Aria closed her eyes for a moment. "Step aside," she whispered. Rian moved away, confused. Her fingers twitched again, small sparks jumping between them. The screen flickered, then shifted into a higher access mode. Doors locked. Alarms silenced. Emergency protocols disabled. Rian stared. "You're hacking the station with your mind." Her eyes opened slowly. "Not the station," she corrected. "The machine part of it." He stared, realizing something important. She was far more than a princess who had lost the use of her body. Something inside her had changed after the accident. Something connected to machines in a way humans shouldn't be. Before he could ask more, the heavy maintenance door behind them shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. The creature had found them. Rian backed away from the door, fear tightening his chest. The princess's voice was calm, almost too calm. "It will break through in less than a minute." Rian looked around the room desperately and spotted a vent shaft high on the wall. "We can escape through there," he said. "I can lift you in." The princess looked toward the vent. "My chair won't fit." Rian knew that too. His mind raced for another escape, but there was none. The room was sealed. The creature was almost inside. He felt trapped. Then something unexpected happened. The princess whispered in a very quiet voice, "I can shut down the machine, but only if I link to it directly." Rian turned to her, shocked. "Link? You mean connect your mind to that thing?" She nodded slowly. "It's the only way." He shook his head. "If you do that, it might kill you." Her eyes softened, the first hint of vulnerability he had seen all night. "If we do nothing, it will kill us both." The metal door bent inward, claws piercing through. Sparks flew. The creature was forcing its way in. Rian grabbed her chair with both hands. "Tell me what to do." She looked up at him, her eyes steady. "I need its signal close. When it enters, distract it. Keep it focused on you. I will handle the rest." Rian felt fear cold in his stomach. Distract it? A machine that killed with a single strike? He swallowed hard and nodded. The door exploded inward. The creature stepped through the smoke, its red eyes glowing brightly. Rian stood between it and the princess, his hands shaking but his stance firm. The machine turned its blade toward him. Rian whispered, "Come on then." Behind him, the princess raised her trembling fingers. Sparks danced between them. The final moment began. The next morning arrived shrouded in an uneasy silence, as if the entire school was holding its breath. The old building seemed different, more alert, more awake, watching every step the three friends took as they entered. Farhan scanned the hallway carefully, half expecting another shadow to dart across his vision, but nothing moved. Still, The quietness felt unnatural, almost deliberate, like someone had dimmed the world around them. The trio exchanged tense glances, each of them struggling with the same unspoken thought. Something had changed after last night. Something was growing stronger. They walked toward their classroom, pretending everything was normal, forcing small conversations to hide the anxiety rolling in their stomachs. But the moment they passed the staircase where the girl had disappeared in the CCTV footage, Rohan suddenly slowed down. His eyes widened as he stared at the railing. Farhan followed his gaze and felt his chest tighten. There were faint handprints on the metal, small, thin, almost fragile, yet smeared as if someone had been dragged downward. A chill crawled up their spines. Haris looked away quickly, unwilling to acknowledge what he saw, but the markings were undeniable. Throughout the first half of the day, none of them could concentrate. Every whisper in the class felt like it came from a direction no one was sitting. Every faint tap on the walls made them flinch. The ceiling fan above them, usually humming steadily, now creaked with a slow, dragging rhythm, as if turning under a heavy weight. In the middle of math class, Farhan felt the temperature around him drop sharply. Goosebumps rose on his arms. He glanced toward the window behind him, and froze. A pale face was pressed against the glass from the outside, eyes wide and unblinking, hair sticking to her cheeks as if drenched in cold water. But the classroom was on the second floor. He blinked and she vanished. Farhan shot up from his chair, breath caught in his throat. Rohan grabbed his arm, whispering urgently, asking what happened, but Farhan couldn't find the words. When the bell finally rang, signaling break, he rushed out with the other two following close behind. They hid behind the old canteen wall, the only spot where teachers rarely came. Farhan finally told them what he'd seen, his voice trembling. Rohan didn't question him. Instead, he confessed that he'd been hearing someone whisper his name all morning. Haris, who had stayed quiet until now, admitted that he'd felt fingers brush the back of his neck during English class. None of them had dared to turn around. They realized the haunting was no longer tied to the abandoned basement. It was following them. Their biggest mistake wasn't entering the restricted area. It was staying too long inside it. Suddenly, the bell rang again, echoing sharply across the grounds. But this time it sounded distorted, stretching unnaturally, like metal bending underwater. The three of them covered their ears instinctively. The sound faded after a few seconds, replaced by an eerie hush. Students looked around confused, and teachers tried calming them, insisting it was a technical issue. But Farhan could see it in the eyes of at least three other kids. They had heard something else in that sound. A whisper hidden beneath the ringing, calling from deep inside the school. The rest of the afternoon dragged painfully. The classrooms felt smaller, darker. Even the sunlight that entered through the windows seemed weaker, paling under an unseen force. When the final bell rang, the boys rushed out, desperate to escape the suffocating atmosphere. But as they reached the main gate, Haris suddenly stopped walking. His face paled. His breathing hitched. Farhan turned in confusion, then saw why. The gate was open, students walked freely, but just beyond the metal bars stood the same girl they had seen in the old photo. The missing student. Her head hung at an unnatural tilt, long hair falling forward, her dress tattered. She didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there. And though dozens of students passed by her, no one seemed to notice her existence except the three of them. Rohan tugged Haris's arm, urging him to move, but Haris seemed rooted in place. The girl slowly lifted her head, revealing empty, hollow eyes. Farhan felt the air leave his lungs. Her lips parted slightly, and though no sound came out, all three boys felt a voice inside their minds. A voice whispering from somewhere impossibly close. "Come back." Farhan grabbed Haris and pulled him through the gate. The moment they stepped outside, the girl disappeared like dust in the wind. The three boys didn't stop running until they reached the road leading toward home. Only then did they slow, panting, shaky, trying to understand what they had witnessed. That night, none of them slept. The fear had crawled into their minds, planting itself deep like a parasite. Farhan kept seeing those lifeless eyes every time he closed his own. Rohan's phone kept vibrating with notifications, yet every time he checked, there was no message. Haris felt something brushing against his blanket, soft but intentional, as if someone was tracing the outline of his legs. The haunting was no longer bound to the school. It had attached itself to them, like a shadow that had finally chosen its hosts. And the missing girl was not warning them. She was calling them back. She wanted something. And she would not stop until she got it. The night crept forward with an uncomfortable stillness, the kind that made Farhan check the corners of his room over and over again. Every sound felt amplified, the ticking of the clock, the faint hum of the ceiling fan, even the distant barking of a street dog. He tried distracting himself by scrolling through videos, but his screen kept glitching, lines flickering across the display like static from an old television. At one point, the screen went completely black. He tapped it impatiently, then nearly dropped the phone when a single pale eye appeared on the screen, staring straight at him. The image vanished instantly, replaced by the home screen. His heart hammered violently. He knew what he saw. He wasn't imagining things anymore. Across the neighborhood, Rohan was pacing around his room. He hadn't sat down since reaching home. Every time he tried to relax, he heard the faint sound of someone breathing behind him. Not whispering, not calling his name, just breathing, like someone standing inches away. At one point he spun around with a shout, expecting the girl to be there, but his room was empty. Still, he could feel the presence, watching him with silent patience. The weight of it pressed down on him, turning every shadow into something alive. Haris had it the worst. He lay curled on his bed, blanket pulled up to his chin, eyes squeezed shut. He had been hearing knocking sounds, first on the window, then on his wardrobe, then on the floor beside his bed. Slow, deliberate knocks, as if someone was trying to find a way inside. When the knocks finally stopped, he swallowed a shaky breath, thinking it was over. But then the mattress dipped slightly, as though someone had sat down beside him. He didn't dare move. He didn't dare breathe too loudly. When he finally opened his eyes, there was nothing there, but the impression on the mattress remained, a deep, undeniable dent. By morning, all three looked like they hadn't slept in days. Their faces were pale, eyes heavy, movements slow. When they met outside the school gate, they didn't speak at first. They didn't need to. The fear on their faces told the whole story. The ghost wasn't just haunting them anymore. She was pulling them deeper into whatever unfinished nightmare she had been trapped in. As they entered the school grounds, they immediately sensed something was wrong. The air felt thick, harder to breathe. Students around them moved normally, laughing and chatting, but the boys noticed something subtle. Shadows beneath the trees swayed even though there was no breeze. A hallway at the far end flickered like a dying light bulb. The old staircase railing, the one with smeared handprints, shimmered faintly, as if touched by invisible fingers. They made their way to class, each step heavier than the last. But the moment they sat down, a strange pattern began. Students around them kept glancing at the door, frowning, rubbing their arms as if feeling cold. The teacher paused twice mid-sentence, staring at the back corner of the room, as though she saw something unusual. The unease was spreading beyond the three of them. Something was stirring inside the school, something that had been silent for years. At recess, they gathered behind the canteen again. Farhan finally voiced what they were all thinking, that they were running out of time. The ghost wasn't trying to scare them. She was trying to force them somewhere. Rohan, with trembling hands, pulled out the old photo again, the group picture of the missing student. He stared at her face, that hollow sadness behind her smile. "Why us?" he whispered. But none of them knew the answer. Then Haris noticed something new. The girl in the photo, her head was slightly tilted. He was sure it hadn't been like that before. Farhan took the photo, anxiety twisting his stomach. The girl's head, once straight, was now leaning to the exact same unnatural angle they'd seen outside the school gate yesterday. A chill raced through all three of them. The photo was changing. Before they could process it, a loud crash echoed through the schoolyard. Screams followed. Students scattered in every direction. The boys rushed toward the noise, adrenaline drowning their fear. In the hallway near the science lab, they saw it. The glass display case that held old trophies and certificates had shattered violently. But it wasn't the broken glass that froze them. It was the message written on the floor in ash-like dust. "Come back down." Farhan felt his knees weaken. The basement. She wanted them there. But why? To show them what happened to her? To drag them into the same fate? Teachers began clearing students away from the hallway, but the boys stayed rooted. Then they felt it, the floor vibrating softly beneath their feet. A pulse. A heartbeat. Coming from below. Rohan whispered shakily that maybe the only way to end this was to face it. Running wasn't working. Avoiding wasn't working. The ghost was growing stronger because she was getting desperate. Haris hesitated, fear gripping him like a hand around his throat, but he knew they couldn't escape this anymore. They had seen too much. They were already marked. So they made the decision. After school ended, when the building emptied and shadows lengthened, they would go back into the basement. The very place where the girl vanished. The place she was calling them to. As the final bell rang later that afternoon, the school seemed to hold its breath again. The lights flickered. The temperature dropped. A distant echo drifted through the hallway. A whisper. Waiting. Calling. And the three boys knew. They were walking into something far darker than a haunting. They were walking into the truth. The school building felt completely different after everyone left. The halls, usually filled with noise, were now silent like a grave. Every sound the boys made, footsteps, breaths, even the rustle of their school bags, echoed too loudly. Farhan led the way, his phone flashlight trembling in his hand. Rohan walked behind him, clutching the old photo of the missing girl. Haris stayed at the back, constantly turning around as if someone was following them. They moved toward the staircase that led into the basement. A cold wind drifted up from below, carrying a faint smell of damp concrete, and something else, something like old perfume mixed with dust. The same scent they had smelled the day they first saw her. Farhan stopped at the top of the steps, swallowing hard. None of them spoke. They all knew once they went down, there was no turning back. As they stepped onto the staircase, the air grew heavier. The light behind them flickered once, then went out completely. Only their phone flashlights kept the darkness away. Their shadows stretched long on the walls, bending unnaturally as if the darkness was pulling at them. The deeper they went, the louder a soft dripping sound became, echoing through the basement like someone tapping a finger against metal. At the bottom of the stairs, the boys found the hallway exactly as they remembered. Old pipes running along the ceiling, peeling paint, broken tiles. But this time something new was there. Long black marks on the floor, like someone had dragged their feet or hands toward the far end of the hall. Haris whispered a shaky prayer under his breath as they followed the marks. Halfway through the hallway, Rohan stopped suddenly. Wait, do you hear that? The other two froze. From the end of the corridor came a sound, a faint humming. A girl's voice. Soft and broken. Like someone singing through tears. Farhan's heart crashed painfully against his ribs. He stepped forward, breath shallow, as the humming grew clearer. It was a lullaby, slow and sad. A tune they had heard before. The same tune that had echoed in their dreams for nights. As they reached the old storage room, the humming stopped. Silence dropped like a heavy blanket. Rohan reached for the handle. His hand shook violently, but he forced himself to turn it. The door opened with a long, painful screech. Inside, their flashlights revealed shelves covered with dust, broken chairs, and old cardboard boxes. The room looked empty at first, until Farhan lowered his light. Then they saw her. The girl stood in the middle of the room, hair covering her face, her head tilted at that same unnatural angle. Her white uniform was stained and torn, her arms hanging lifelessly at her sides. Even though she was facing downward, all three boys felt her staring at them. A cold shiver rolled through their bones, freezing them in place. Haris's breathing turned sharp. What does she want from us? He whispered, voice shaking. Slowly, very slowly, the girl lifted her head. Not naturally, her neck cracked loudly, shifting in jerky movements like a broken doll. When her face finally became visible, the boys stepped back in horror. Her eyes were pale and hollow. Her skin was gray. A long bruise wrapped around her throat like someone had grabbed her hard. But the worst part was her expression. Pain, fear, and helplessness frozen forever. Rohan's hand shook as he held up the old photo. You want us to see something, don't you? The girl didn't speak. But she lifted one hand. Her arm trembled violently, as if it hurt her to move. She pointed toward the far wall. A spot behind stacked boxes. Farhan moved toward it slowly. As he reached the boxes, he smelled something sharp and metallic. He pushed the boxes aside and froze. Behind them was a heavy metal door. Rusted. Locked with an old latch. And smeared across the bottom were faint brown stains. The ghost girl stepped closer, her feet not making any sound. She pointed at the door again. Her voice finally came, broken, whispering, like wind slipping through cracks. Inside. Farhan and Rohan exchanged terrified looks, then unlatched the door. A blast of cold air rushed out. The room inside was small, almost like a forgotten storage cell. Their flashlights revealed the remains of school equipment, and something else. A torn school bag. A cracked phone. A shoe. Haris picked up the bag with trembling hands. Inside were notebooks with the girl's name written on the cover. She hadn't disappeared. She had been locked here. Left here. Alone. The sudden truth hit all of them like a punch. Rohan's voice cracked. She didn't run away, someone trapped her. Farhan felt anger rising with fear. She died here. She waited for help, and no one came. The ghost girl stood at the doorway, watching them silently. Tears formed in her pale eyes. Even though she was no longer alive, the boys realized what she wanted. She didn't want revenge. She wanted the truth to be known. She wanted her story to be seen. Suddenly, the room shook violently. The lights flickered. The pipes above groaned. A loud banging echoed through the hallway, growing closer. Footsteps, fast and angry. The boys panicked. Someone's coming. Haris shouted. But the ghost girl shook her head and stepped forward. She touched Farhan's flashlight. The moment her fingers met the light, it flickered, and then her entire body glowed softly. She leaned close to Farhan, whispered one last thing. Tell them. I was here. Then her body dissolved into a wave of white light, filling the hallway. For a few seconds, the basement glowed like daylight. When the light faded, she was gone. Completely gone. But the heavy feeling in the air, the cold presence, the whispers, everything disappeared with her. The basement felt empty now. Quiet. Peaceful. The boys stumbled back upstairs, shaken but no longer terrified. They went straight to the principal the next morning, showing him the hidden room, the girls' things, and the old photo. The school launched a full investigation. The truth came out. Years ago, an angry staff member had trapped the girl in the basement during a fight. He had locked the door, planning to return but never did. Her disappearance had remained a mystery. Until now. The boys watched from a distance as the police took away the staff member. They felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. The girl had suffered, but now, she wasn't alone anymore. Her story was heard. Her truth was known. And the haunting finally ended. But sometimes, when Farhan walks past the old basement door, he feels a soft breeze and hears a faint, peaceful whisper. Thank you.